Welcome to this series of webinars organized by Prodyssey Solutions. Prodyssey Solutions is a business and technology consulting company, and we like to approach marketing from a different perspective, from a business angle. My name is Nicolas. I'm partner at Prodyssey Solutions, and today's webinar is about digital marketing, specifically for lawyers, accountants, and professional service providers. Now, you may be wondering why, instead of delivering a generic webinar about search engine optimization, for example, or digital marketing in general, or maybe social media marketing, why is it that we are focusing on this specific niche? There are two primary reasons for that. Number one is because we want to pass on relevant experiences and expertise that we have gained over the years working on real projects with real people. As I said, pass on this relevant experience and pass on our expertise in the industry, in the sense that we managed to identify some key considerations, some key facts that we need to be aware when designing or when considering our digital marketing approach. And the second reason is because throughout these webinars, I want to make it as obvious as possible, and I want to introduce this notion of how important it is to focus on specific niches. And this is something that will come up a lot during this webinar specifically, and it'd be very weird if I was sitting here asking you to focus on a specific niche for your business, for your digital marketing approach, whereas at the same time, I was delivering a generic webinar. There is a lot to cover in a very short period of time. If you feel by the end of this video that you have any questions, or if you have any things that you want to discuss further, our contact details are going to be in the description. This is what we do for a living. We are very excited for anything that has to do with business, technology, and digital marketing specifically. So feel free to reach out to us. So with that being said, I think it's time to get started. In today's webinar, we're discussing the following topics. First of all, we are introducing some sector-specific information in relation to accountants, professional service providers, and lawyers. We will analyze how some industry facts relating to professional service providers are affecting your digital marketing efforts. Then we'll move on to highlighting the importance of specifying your digital marketing strategy and approach from the beginning of this process. Then we're establishing the foundation of your digital presence, which is your website. Your website is your real asset in the digital space. Social media marketing can be very effective, but at the same time, I think we must all be in a position to appreciate how important it is to have a functional and well-structured website. In the next section, we are introducing some concepts, tools, tips, and tricks on how you can stay connected on a consistent basis with your client base, with your partners, with your prospective clients. And finally, we're closing this webinar by discussing social media marketing and organic promotion. If you are interested in any particular topic, the whole video is going to be timestamped in the description below. Otherwise, I'll be more than happy to have you here for the whole webinar. And with that being said, we can get started. In this section, we're discussing some key facts and industry-specific information. No new concepts are introduced here. It's just things that you're already aware of. We're trying to connect it with your digital marketing approach and with your business approach in general. And the first thing that I want to discuss is something that you must have realized the first day that you've joined your firm, or the first day that you started operating as a business, or you will soon realize it when you start operating as a business. And this is about how competitive this industry is. And it is very competitive, not only because of the number of participants, the number of people that are trying to offer the services that you are offering. There are people that are already doing what you are trying to do, and there will be people that will be trying to replicate your success. And in that sense, competition is described as very intense in this industry. Now, recognizing that threat or risk depends on how you view it. It's not necessarily a bad thing, because as soon as you recognize it, you will immediately start seeing some opportunities that will allow you to jump ahead of your competition. And let me explain what I mean by that. Yes, there's a lot of competition, but the reality is that many people are approaching their practice as a legal practice or as an accounting practice and not as a business. And this is where you can achieve differentiation if you do it properly, with proper strategy, with proper planning. You can differentiate in the way that you're offering your services, the quality of your services. You can differentiate in the way that you are presenting yourself to the public, and you can differentiate in the way that you are approaching new clients. And if you manage to do that, as I said, you're already ahead of your competition, because what we have been observing in this industry is that people are trying to replicate the success of big firms. They're trying to use repetitive models or repetitive values. For example, we are a one-stop shop, or we can do everything around law and accounting, or we are a boutique firm, and so on and so forth. These are things that you will find quite commonly if you visit different websites of lawyers and accountants, and maybe professional service providers to a certain degree. So the punchline here is that, yes, there are threats arising from how competitive this industry is, but there are opportunities in the digital space specifically if you want to approach it from a business angle. Now, the other thing that we're seeing, which is kind of associated with what I mentioned earlier, the number of participants in this industry, is the fact that we are seeing lots of low quality information. People are trying to promote themselves in very similar ways. People are trying to replicate content. People are trying to copy each other. And by doing that, they believe that they are copying success and failures and experiences from other people. In reality, what they are doing, they are overloading the web with low quality information. Digital marketing and marketing in general is about delivering value with your content, delivering value with how you're presenting yourself, and delivering value with your services. This is very basic understanding of how business works. And if you manage to generate value for your customers, for your employees, then what you should be expecting is the analogous return. But as I said, we live in an era, in the AI era, that there is lots of low quality information out there, information that do not necessarily make any sense. And don't get me wrong, I love AI. I use AI a lot. I work with AI, and I've developed my own AI applications. But at the same time, I do recognize that AI is a tool, and there needs to be a specific strategy behind it. There needs to be a specific approach. And above all, it's the tool, it's not the product. It's not what you're trying to sell. And recognizing that will allow you to evaluate whether the content that you're creating is value adding or not. So, as I was saying, the second concept that we're discussing in this brief section is about how intense it is when it comes to low quality content that people are developing with the expectation that they will get a return. They will not. And that's again another opportunity, because, as I said earlier, differentiation is key. And again, visit one or two websites from your competitors that are offering similar kind of services to what you are offering, and you will see that essentially what they are doing, they are repeating or they are copying things from each other. So keep that in mind. There is a huge opportunity here. There is a great way to achieve differentiation, and we'll be mentioning quite a few things during this webinar on how you can professionally develop your digital marketing strategy or your business strategy in general, on how you can professionally contact and stay connected with your clientele. Now, the last part of this section, it's about some ethical considerations, and in some jurisdictions, some regulatory considerations that there are in place preventing you from being overly aggressive in your digital marketing effort. Without getting into too much details, because as I said, these are concepts that you are already familiar with. The fact that regulation or some ethical considerations are preventing you from being overly aggressive, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because you shouldn't be overly aggressive. What you're trying to do in the digital space is what I said earlier, create value with the expectation of getting a return on your investment. And with that being said, another one thing to mention is that you want to make clients to ask the right questions when they are interacting either your digital content or with your firm in general or with you as a person. You want to make them ask themselves that, if they can do this for free, if they can provide this value adding content for free, if they can give me this tax calculator that saved me 3 hours and they did that for free, imagine what they can do if I pay them. So once people start thinking about your brand, about your firm, the way that you want them to start thinking or interacting with your brand, then you have already won the game. The results will follow, and we shouldn't be too focused on getting clients through the door via our website. What we need to do is to have a digital presence that makes sense. It adds value to your users. So again, there is regulatory threats or some ethical considerations, but at the same time, there are opportunities because with value-adding content creation, you can achieve a lot. You can jump ahead of your competition. Again, this is something that is most commonly overlooked. I get it that we are all too busy and we cannot provide value for free. We'd rather focus on things that are providing short-term return to our business. I get all that, but at the same time, I'm of the opinion that if you want to do something, you've got to do it properly. And if you want to do it properly, you've got to realize and recognize that you shouldn't be messing with people. You shouldn't be providing content that it doesn't make any sense. It does not add value. It does not add to the things that they are already aware of. So either do it or don't do it. Closing this section, one thing it's important to realize that with every threat, there is an opportunity. With every industry risk, there is an opportunity. Things will change in the near future in terms of digital marketing because the digital space is an ever-evolving one. You cannot restrict that. You cannot stay away from it. Even if you don't have a website or you are not engaged in the digital space, at some point your firm will have to do it. So it's good that you start thinking about it from now. It's good that, as I said, you are already ahead in that space, in the sense that you are sitting here watching a webinar that will hopefully add value to what is it that you're trying to do. The first question that I'm always asking my clients is, what is it that you're trying to achieve? Where do you want to get? And this is very relevant because most commonly people know how much they can spend on certain things, how much they can invest on certain things, but they do not necessarily recognize the importance of having a specific strategy of where is it that we want to get. So that's the importance of having a digital strategy and a digital marketing approach, because otherwise, without having any destination, without specifying your targets, without specifying who you want to be in this space, you're just going to be one of the rest of the people in this industry. You will not manage to differentiate in any way, shape, or form. So digital marketing is important. One concept that I'm working on with my clients is to help them recognize that digital marketing or marketing in general, it's not meant to be an expense. If you do it properly, it's meant to be an investment. With that, you've got to know how to measure your success, measure your failure, and estimate your return on your investment. And in order to do that, you need to know your destination. Otherwise, it's like getting into a taxi and asking the driver to drive you anywhere. You don't know where you want to get. You only know how much you've got to spend. And you pay the taxi driver and you ask him or her, when the tariff reaches a certain point, just stop. And then you stop in the middle of nowhere, just wondering if you are any closer to your destination or if you are very far away from your destination. So again, I cannot stress enough how important it is to have a digital marketing strategy and a digital marketing approach, it's not very difficult to do because it is most commonly overlooked by other people. So just grabbing a piece of paper and writing down some ideas, you've done already much more than what 90% of the people are doing in this industry. So yeah, it is important to start from the beginning. Just write down some questions that you should be answering yourself. What is it that I'm trying to? Am I trying to improve my digital presence? Am I trying to attract more customers? Am I trying to upsell to my existing customers? Am I trying to get into a new region or a new industry? Who is it that I want to be in this industry? So just write down these questions and start answering them one by one. Now, in order to have a strategy, what you've got to identify is your overarching goal, your specific goal as a business. There is this notion of boutique firms that are trying to offer as much as possible. I think I've mentioned it during the previous sections, and it's good, it's understandable in the sense that I get it. Every business owner is trying to do what they're trying, what they have to do in order to survive, in order to get through the door as much business as they need for their business to survive. But this should not prevent you from having specific targets of where you want to get. So I can say that, yes, I'm starting as a boutique law firm. I'm starting as a firm that's offering anything or everything. That's fine. But at the same time, I need to have a specific structure and a specific pathway on how I'm moving from a generic service provider to a service provider that focuses on a specific niche. Now, many people are trying or are worrying that by focusing on a specific niche, you're automatically excluding the rest of the population from interacting with your firm or coming closer to you in terms of creating synergies or getting people as clients for other services that do not necessarily fall into your niche. And this cannot be further from the truth, because if you've got a specialization, it does not necessarily mean that you cannot offer anything else around your area of expertise. What it means is that you are focusing on certain things, you are focusing your resources. And when I say resources, I mean money, time, employees' time, and so on and so forth. So you are focusing your resources on a very targeted, specific niche, but at the same time, you are not excluding anyone. It's not like that you will say on your website that if you are not a startup company, do not speak to us. No, that's not how it works. And you will start realizing that when you start focusing, as I said, when you start being more targeted on what is it that you're trying to achieve. Now, for the purpose of this webinar, let's take this example, however, of an overarching goal. I want to provide legal support for startups. Okay, so as long as I've got my overarching goal, and again, you've got to write it down, because once you start writing things down, you will soon realize that some things do not make any sense, or some things need more work, or some things are brilliant and you haven't thought of them. So once you start writing down your overarching goal, that it is to provide high quality legal support to startups, then you can immediately start answering some relevant questions. Why do I want to do that? What's the business opportunity here? Is it the fact that most people are focusing on large conglomerates, whereas I want to specifically focus on the specific niche? Is it the fact that most of the people do not have my business understanding when it comes to speaking with startups, understanding their mentality, and so on and so forth? So once you start answering these questions, why? How am I going to focus on startups? What am I trying to achieve in general? What are my KPIs, the key performance indicators? How many employees do I have? Do I need to hire more people that are more skilled in the niche that I'm trying to focus? Do I need to train myself? So once you start doing these things, as I said, you are already very much ahead of your competition, because again, it's that simple, but no one is doing it. Now, once you have defined your overarching goal, then you can start thinking of your targets and the actions that you will need to take, the roadmap that you will need to have in order to reach to that overarching goal. Continue with the example of providing legal support for startups. My specific targets can be quite a few things. It can be joining 10 startup communities by the end of the year. It can be producing posts in business magazines in relation to the startup community. I can produce a 10 minutes video explaining my services and how do they add value to the people in the startup community. It can be anything in general that revolves around the niche that I'm focused. Now, this target, it goes without saying that they need to be measurable. They need to have to be as specific as possible. So saying, for example, I will participate in webinars. Well, you've got to define the number of webinars, how often you're going to do it, what resources are you going to spend for that, and so on and so forth. So try to be as specific as possible. Try to set your targets as soon as possible. Of course, this planning is not going to take you a lot of time, but it's going to be revisited quite a few times during the year or during your operations because things are changing very fast. Your priorities and your focus may change. But one thing is for sure, if you've got a specific target, you know how and when kind of activities you need to do, and you can allocate activities per month. You know when you are too busy, when you know when you are less busy, so you can allocate the different activities to the different months of the year, to the different periods of the year, depending on how flexible you are. And once we have our overarching goal, once we've got our targets, then is the time to start thinking about money. Then is the time to start thinking, how much do I have to spend? How much do I want to spend? And again, it's not an expense. You're not spending this money, you're meant to invest this money. And if you've got your specific targets written down, then it's very easy to calculate your expected return on investment. I'll never put together expense with marketing. These are two completely different things. Marketing, if you do it properly, is meant to be an investment for your business, for your long-term success. Don't forget that if you are building a brand and you are investing some money today, essentially what you are doing is that you are building something that's going to last for the next 10, 20, 30 years. I'm not into the habit of convincing people to spend more than they can. I'm not in the habit that let's say, push people to lock more resources than they can. On the contrary, I would say that I'm usually very pragmatic. And what I'm trying to convince people is to get to the point that their investment has a purpose, that their investment has a return. So again, this is a concept that we will be discussing quite a lot during the next sections. But closing this section, I will say that, yes, the digital space is very important. Yes, there are quite a few things that can help you jump ahead of your competition. And there are things that will help you to acquire new business. But if you do it without strategy, if you do it without purpose, then you are not necessarily investing in your long-term success. You may be getting some short-term returns, but that's not necessarily the approach that you should be following. 90% of our clients are coming to us not because they do not have a website, but because they've got a website that is not working. And when I say not working, I mean that it's not delivering the results that they were initially expecting when they developed their website. So the rule is quite simple here. Unfortunately, you either do it nice or you do it twice. In a sense, no matter what your budget is, you've got to structure your website in a certain way that it is scalable. It will allow you to grow. It will grow with you. And you need to structure it in a way that it will not prevent your future success. So no matter what your budget is, you've got to structure it properly. And I cannot highlight this enough because I've seen people who have invested heavily in developing a website without a structure, without an approach, without a digital marketing strategy, which we discussed in the previous section. And what they end up doing is spending money without getting any return out of it. Now, unfortunately, this is a hard reality, and you've got to convince people that have already spent quite a few bucks into starting from the beginning, engaging resources, engaging people from their company, spending their own time to redesign or redevelop their websites. So no matter what your budget is, no matter which tool you decide to go with, because there are different tools out there, and there are quite a few good tools. I'll mention Wix, for example, or Squarespace, or WordPress, GoDaddy. I don't know. There are quite a few website development tools out there which you can use, and with all of them, you can develop exceptional results. I have nothing against any of them. I haven't used all of them. I've used quite a few of them. But one thing I need to mention is that if you are building something, build it with scalability in mind. Because I'm taking, for example, Wix, a brilliant tool. It can get you a professionally looking website in a few hours. You can do it yourself. Very, very easy to handle, very easy to manage. It connects you with SEO optimization techniques, everything. It's got everything. But the sacrifice here is that, first of all, you're heavily reliant on a third party. So if they wake up tomorrow and they decide that they're going to increase their annual fees, there is nothing you can do about it. You can migrate your website and build it from the beginning with another web development tool. But it's what I said earlier, you will be replicating your work. You don't know when this is going to happen or if it's going to happen. And I'm not saying that it will happen, but I'm mentioning that because I consider your website as the foundation of your digital presence, your digital asset. And if your digital asset is essentially locked with a third party, you are very reliant on that third party. So that's the first risk of using tools like Wix. The second is that it is not necessarily the most scalable solution that you can find out there. Nothing against Wix, but if it is for a simple website, then yes, you can do it. When it comes to more complicated things, it starts to become slower and slower until you get to a point that you realize that, it's not scalable anymore. And it's not just about the annual cost that you will have with tools like that. It's not just about how much you will pay initially or how much time you will spend initially to develop a basic website. If you don't do it with scalability in mind, what you are missing or what you've got is opportunity cost as well. Because if you build a website 3 years ago that's not working and it's not productive and it's not producing anything, essentially what you've missed is 3 years of being competitive in the industry, or 3 years of promoting yourself in the digital space, 3 years of building your reputation in the digital space. So opportunity cost can be quite high if you decide to make a simple website to begin with and then redesign it as you move forward. I have made these mistakes myself. Many people that I know have made these mistakes. It's not the end of the world. You need to be decisive when and why you are taking certain decisions. So if you've got something that doesn't work, it doesn't work. Do not try to reinvent it or change it. If it's something that has not been built with the proper foundations, I will explain what these foundations are in a bit. But if it's not something that was built with scalability in mind, then you might as well take the decision to kill the dog and start from the beginning. Now, I think I've mentioned it during my introduction, but I consider websites the foundation of your digital presence. You cannot work without them. You cannot promote yourself in the digital space without a solid website, especially as a professional service provider, as a lawyer or as an accountant. If you are in any other niche, if you are an online shop, you can have great results with social media marketing, for example. But when it comes to these specific services, your website is the foundation of your digital presence. It's like your physical office. People are visiting your physical office and we live with an impression. The same way that they are visiting your digital space, your website, and you again leave a good impression to them or a bad one. Another thing to mention is that your website is your real asset because you can define it, you can utilize it however you want. You can add any content you want without any sort of restrictions, which is not necessarily the same with social media marketing, because you may have a channel with certain followers, but from one day to another, things might change. You may be banned, you may be not promoted enough by these third parties, the social media platforms that you are focusing. So I'm not trying to undermine the importance of social media marketing. It is quite important, very important actually. It helps you to stay connected on a very consistent basis with your client base and potential clients. But at the same time, I consider your website one of the most important investments that you will do in your business. I consider your website one of the most important aspects that will define your long-term success in the digital space. In the next part of this section, we will be discussing some more technical aspects, but as I was trying to do with the rest of this webinar, I tried to approach it from a business angle, because this is how I approach it in my daily routine as well. So when I was saying earlier that you've got to build a website with a solid structure, what I meant is that you've got to recognize and have a specific way of describing to the search engines, to Google, for example, who you are and what you are offering. They do not like generic statements. I mean, the search engines, they do not like generic statements. They do not like things that are overly complicated that they cannot grasp or understand. So if I'm a lawyer that's focusing on legal support for startups, then I would have sections or pages within my website that describe the services that I'm offering, previous experience that I have with startups, use cases, show my work experience, that show my expertise in the industry. Under services, I may have things like incorporation services for startups, application for IP box regime, tax consulting for startups, HR services for startups. Even if it falls outside the legal spectrum, it is relevant to the startups, which is my target. It is relevant to my niche. So as long as I've got this structure, then what I have to do is to start building content beneath the structure. So I can create posts, or I can create articles about the factors that you can consider when incorporating a startup, about the steps that you will need to take to incorporate a startup, about some key tax benefits that startup may have in my jurisdiction, and so on and so forth. So you've got to get into the habit of structuring everything into pillars. These are the so-called pillars of a website, and create verticals with relevant content that promote your core, your niche. There is no other way to describe to the search engines, to Google, for example, what is it that you're trying to do. Now, one thing to mention, why is it important to have Google on our side than against us, is because you are a user of Google search, for example, or any other search engine that exists out there. And essentially, when you type something, when you ask a question, or when you are trying to find something, Google will promote the results that they consider more relevant. And there are other things that we'll be discussing that, as I said, are more technical, but that's one of them, that you've got to provide a very good idea to the search engine of what is it that you're trying to do, what kind of services that you're trying to do. Are you trying to sell your website? Are you trying to educate the public? Are you trying to basically promote yourself as an industry leader? All these things needs to be quite clear. And if they are not, you are missing the plot, because Google is missing the plot, and you won't be getting any results out of your website. It goes back to what we were discussing during the digital marketing strategy section and why it is important. You see that everything comes together now, because you've got to have a digital marketing strategy, and that digital marketing strategy will essentially get into your website and become and create the pillars of your website, the subtopics that you are focusing under your overarching goal. The next topic, it's one I particularly like because it's very commonly discussed in the digital marketing space. You will find lots of information out there. Some of them are relevant, some of them are not relevant when it comes to the specific niche that we are discussing today. And this topic is about search engine optimization. Now, for those who do not necessarily understand what search engine optimization is, let me say a few things. It's essentially the way, the algorithm that Google and any other search engines are using in order to define who ranks first and who ranks lower when people are searching for certain things. And it's very technical. There's good documentation out there. But having said that, it's very technical. The way that I like to approach it is from a business perspective. And let me give you an example about that. We know that the faster a website loads, the higher it's going to rank. It's not the only metric, but it's one of the metrics used. So you've got to have a fast website. Now, the technical aspect is that you've got to make your website load as fast as possible. Understanding why you have to do that is an important part, though, because what you want to do is to create the best user experience for the people that are visiting your website. And if it takes forever to load, if the images do not load because they are too heavy or because your hosting is not good enough, then you get the point. I mean, you're not providing the best user experience. No one is going to sit and wait for 8 seconds for your website to load. They will go on to the next one and they will never come back to you. So again, this is an example of how a technical aspect can be viewed from a business angle and start making more sense. Apart from the website speed, what we've got to recognize is that it is very important to have optimized content on your website. And there's quite a few ways to approach that. What I like to do is, again, to introduce some business understanding into what content creation is. The traditional way of doing content creation is by analyzing certain keywords. There are some click-free tools out there that you can utilize. For example, the Google Keyword Planner. It comes with its own limitation and it's not solely based. Actually, it does not describe the organic behavior of your traffic, of the traffic that you are searching. But nevertheless, it is out there and it is freely available. So people that work on content creation, what they are doing is that they search for keywords around a niche. For example, going back to the example of legal support for startups, I would search for startups legal services or startups in my jurisdiction or incorporation services for startups and so on and so forth. And I would type down these keywords and then the keyword planner or any other tool would give me some sort of similar keywords that other people are searching for, with some data analysis about the traffic, the jurisdiction that these people are based, and so on and so forth. So after collecting this information, people will try to build content with these keywords in mind. They'll try to attack these keywords. And they do that by developing posts and articles and in general content from their website. Now, what I like to do is to view it from a traditional marketing angle. What essentially the keyword search plan is your marketing strategy. It's essentially a very, very good tool, a very interesting tool that will help you to identify what your target is, what people in your niche are most interested about, what people in your niche are discussing about. So it's not just about the tool that you are using. You can get into forums and see the questions that people are asking and start understanding the concerns of the people in your industry or your specific niche. And once you do that, you can combine it with your business acumen and start understanding that, yeah, I'm receiving these questions a lot. yeah, people in this industry, they are facing these issues. So if I'm going to develop content, I'm going to develop content around problems that they cannot solve and demonstrate how can provide support to these problems. And if you manage to do that, what you are getting essentially is the support of Google, because you are providing value-added content. Again, Google is not against you. It can be with you if they consider that your content is value-adding, is of high importance. Of course, there are some tick boxes to check with regards to how you title your website, certain words that you've got to repeat within your content. But that is of less importance. The most important part to focus is to understand what kind of problems you can solve for people and start solving them. Start providing information on how people can be successful in a certain industry. And if you manage to do that properly, then if they are successful with your tips and tricks, it goes without saying that when they're gonna need some services, some people will be coming to you. Unfortunately, it's a numbers game. So you may be providing free support to thousands of people, but in reality, what you are expecting is to get 10 or 20 of those as clients. That's still a window. So that's how I'm approaching marketing from a business perspective. And the last point that I want to raise around this topic is I know how technically good you may be in your niche. I know how good of a lawyer you can be or how good of an accountant you can be. You are not impressing anyone by using heavy terminology. And this is quite very common across these industries, that people are trying to, let's say, enforce their knowledge or prove that they are experts in a certain area by using some terminology that no one understands. And if they do that, they believe that they're differentiating from their competition. In reality, what you're doing, you are confusing your audience. You are not providing any value to them, because if I've got to make 5 Google searches to go through your article and understand what you're trying to communicate, then it's not good enough. First of all, I'm going to leave as soon as I feel intimidated about your content. And secondly, if you want to add value, you've got to make it digestible to people. You've got to explain it as clearly as possible, break it down into parts and pieces. I believe that you've got a better understanding of how you can structure your website and how search engine optimization works. It is very business-oriented activity, the search engine optimization, no matter what other people are saying, because there are developers that are approaching it in a very different way. But again, having in mind how Google works, they're trying to produce the best experience for their users. And if that's what you're trying to do as well, then you're aligned with them, and I wouldn't be so afraid about search engine optimization. The next part, once you've developed your content, once you've structured your website in a certain way, once you've established who your target is, and so on and so forth, the next step is to start getting your website out there. And it is kind of related to search engine optimization again, because take the point of view of any search engine. If I'm trying to promote the best user experience for my customers, for my users, and I've got 2 websites with similar content or very good structure with specific strategy, both of them have great content and so on and so forth. Website number 1, it was released literally yesterday. And then you've got website number 2, which was released 10 years ago. And people are referencing this website. People are interacting already with this website. This website appears in business magazines. It appears in videos on YouTube. It appears on social media, and so on and so forth. Who would you choose? Who would you suggest to your users? Who would you rank higher if you were Google? And it's quite obvious. It's website number 2, because this is a way that Google uses in order to measure the trustworthiness of a domain, how authoritative a certain domain is. So you've got to get your website out there. You've got to connect it with your social media as a bare minimum. You've got to be on Google Maps with a Google Business account. But on top of that, because that's very basic and more or less everyone's doing it, on top of that, what you have to do is literally get your website out there. Start publishing articles to magazines, start doing interviews with the expectation that people that write your interviews or publish your content, they will link back to your website. And then Google will see that backlink and say that, okay, if this well-established magazine is referencing this website, you know, it's trustworthy. I can't promote it. I won't hold back from it. But if they see nothing, a website with great content, because anyone can develop a good content, let's not fool ourselves. But if you see a website with good content, but with no authority, you won't be promoting it. So closing this section, this very important section, the main concepts that I would like to highlight is the fact that you've got to do it properly the first time that you're doing your website. Otherwise, you will end up spending more and more resources trying to get it right and reach to a point where you will realize that you cannot get it right. The second point that's very important is the fact that, you know, a website is not a one-off endeavor. Developing a website is not something that you do once and then you forget about it. It's something that you continuously need to work on. It's something that you continuously need to organically develop and grow as your business grows. You've got to be consistent with publishing new content on your website. You've got to be consistent with the efforts that you make in order to promote your website, the efforts that you make to get your website out there. There are a few things that are quite technical. There are quite a few things that are business oriented. So my recommendation is to start working with people that have done this before, utilize their experience. I know that most often than not, there's going to be cost associated with that, but you've got to start trusting people with relevant experience. And, you know, it's the same like if I was coming to you for a contract, you were quoting me on a contract, and then I was like, no, it's too expensive, I'm going to do it with AI. It goes without saying that the results that I'd be getting wouldn't be the same. So you've got a risk if you decide to go through this path on your own, even if you don't decide to outsource the whole website development process, you've got to get relevant input from people that have done it before. So keep that in mind. It doesn't have to be us if that's what you're thinking. It can be anyone who you can trust. It can be anyone who is knowledgeable. It can be anyone who can demonstrate that they have done this before and they can show you their results on Google and they're exceptional. So if that's the case, then do not hold back from it. We are all very anxious to get new business through the line, to get introduced to new prospects or find new clients. And this is the business reality that we live in, that we need to continuously evolve ourselves, and we need to continuously find new businesses to support our operations. But by doing that, we shouldn't overlook the power of cross-selling and upselling to our existing client base, because these are people that have already trusted you in the past. These are people that have seen something in you. And in most cases, these are people that know that you are capable for certain things, but do not necessarily know the whole range of services that you are offering. So chances are that they are facing some issues with their businesses, they are facing some issues in their daily routines that you can solve, but they don't know it. And this is why it is important to find ways to stay connected on a consistent basis with our clients. Now, the principles are still the same here. You've got to add value to the people that are following you. You've got to be generous in terms of the knowledge that you're passing on to them. And the expectation is that if you do that properly, they'll come back to you to ask for more services and additional support and so on and so forth. Again, these are people that have already trusted you in the past. These are people that have already paid you. So you might as well give something back to them with the expectation that this is going to create a vicious circle and you'll start receiving things back from them as well. So staying connected is one of the most important aspects, but staying relevant is one of the few things that if you get right, then your success uh, will be very high in the digital marketing space. One of the best ways of staying close and staying relevant and uh, achieve consistent results with digital marketing is with newsletters. So these pieces of information can be delivered via email or so many other sources. And essentially, what they provide to the reader is a snapshot of any legislation updates, for example, internal updates, and so on and so forth. Do not take it for granted that people know all the services that you are offering. So keep repeating them within your newsletters. Do not take it for granted that people will know how your business is evolving. If you've hired few new employees, if you have attended a training in the last month, that potentially will allow you to appreciate and understand new concepts and principles, then share this with people, because otherwise you will be doing things, you will be spending time and money trying to develop yourself or your business towards a certain direction, but at the same time, your client base will not be aware of it. And it's quite easy to upsell and cross-sell services. It's much easier than trying to get new people through the door, trying to establish this element of trust from the beginning. So as I said, be mindful of that. Use your newsletters. The key here is to be consistent. The key is to add value. And when I say consistent, I don't mean that you've got to share newsletters with people every day. You don't need to spam people in order to stay relevant. But if you were to say that I'm going to do it probably once a month, then that's absolutely fine. If you have the resources to do it weekly, and you have not only the resources, but the ability to stay relevant on a weekly basis, then fair enough, go ahead and do it. But be mindful that you are not a news agency. So if all you are doing, you are sharing with them certain legislative updates, for example, or some industry news, or some tax updates, and so on and so forth. If that's all you are doing, then this is information that they can find elsewhere. You've got to promote your own business. You've got to promote your own practice within these newsletters. You've got to ask people to visit your website if they want to find more. You've got to ask people to contact you if they are interested in any particular topic. And you've got to create this element of, communication with your customer base. Now, many people are confusing newsletters and newsletter campaigns with email marketing campaigns. And email marketing is quite different in the sense that your target audience is different. You are not targeting people that you are already in association with. You are targeting people that have not interacted with your business potentially. Or you may be interacting with people that had some interaction with your business, but it's at very early stages. So the concept is sort of similar, but the target audience is very different. And recognizing that will allow you to start appreciating when to use email marketing campaigns and when to start using newsletters. As I said, one of the most important principles with newsletters is to be consistent and value adding. With email marketing, one of the most important principles is to spark the curiosity of the people that are interacting with that email, to make sure that they will see the heading and they will immediately click on it because it's something that answers a specific question that they have. Because this is how well you are understanding their industry, that you can tease them by asking a certain question. So, for example, if I'm delivering a webinar or if I'm trying to promote my marketing services for lawyers and accountants, I'd be sending an email saying, I don't know, asking a very simple question. Can you manage 5 new clients this month? Can you bring new clients from the UAE? These kind of questions. And I'm not lying to people, because essentially I'm trying to make them think is that, well, yes, I clicked on that email because I like the idea of being able to promote myself in a new industry. I like the idea of being able to consistently generate organically revenue for my business. And once they clicked on it, whether they're going to take action or not, is up to them. And it's perfectly understandable that most of the people that will be seeing this email, they may not take any action immediately. But the expectation, again, it's a numbers game, and you need to be very strict with the numbers here, because you don't want to spam people. If you are sending an email that no one is opening, or it's got a very low open rate, if you are sending an email that no one is taking action on, essentially what you are doing, you are spamming people, and you need to stay away from it. But there are ways to do it properly. There are ways to be clever about it. So I'm not saying that you should be staying away from it. What I'm saying is that try to get everything else right. The website, that's your foundation, your social media, your newsletters. And once everything is in place, then yes, maybe start considering additional resources like email marketing or additional methods of attracting new people to your business. Social media marketing is a huge topic, not only for lawyers and accountants and professional service providers, but for everyone who is running a business. No matter what size you are, if you are a big conglomerate or if you are a small business, essentially what they are doing, these social media platforms, they are giving you the platform to promote yourself equally to other people, or that is what they claim. But no matter what the case is, they are brilliant tools, because if you think about it, the average user is using around about 4 hours per day on social media. So the market is there. Chances are that a huge portion of your target audience, a huge portion of the people that you are targeting will be there and see content on social media. So you might as well find a way to jump ahead of your competition and become the number one feed on their thread. And if you manage to do that, it goes without saying that you will start gaining some traction. So the question to ask here before start engaging in social media marketing is, why do people are getting on these platforms? And my understanding, my business understanding, and then my human behavior understanding is that people are visiting social media because they want to laugh, love, socialize, criticize, feel emotions, hate, all these things. They do not necessarily get on social media to do business, especially if you are not a marketing expert that's trying to promote different business to social media. But if you are just a random person, if you are just a person that's the average user of social media, you are not getting there to do business. And your success or failure in this space will depend on how you approach the space yourself. Because if people are not there to do business and you are there to promote business, then you're kind of missing the plot. You are immediately seeing the misalignment between the user intention and your intention. Within social media, what you should be striving to do is to create communities, initiate discussions, come closer to your people, and post relevant updates about your organization on a consistent basis. You don't want to, again, introduce heavy terminology. You can share your opinion, of course, on some legislative updates or on some tax updates if you are an accountant, but you've got to make it interesting for people. It doesn't need to be very technical. It shouldn't be very technical. It shouldn't be repetitive to what other people are posting. You've got to have a specific character. You've got to have a specific brand voice and a specific target audience. So it all goes back to the digital marketing section. Again, most of these things, you may believe that we are repeating them between the different sections, but in reality, is that if you get these principles right, that you've got to create value-adding content primarily by focusing on your target audience. So that's one thing, value-adding content. And then the second thing, you've got to be consistent. you've got to be there and answer questions, and you've got to be there and share their own content or ask them to share your content, and you've got to keep yourself in the mix. Now, again, social media platforms are brilliant platforms, and they are giving you lots of power, but at the same time, you've got to compete with other people in the industry, and you've got to be different in certain ways in order to convince the users of this social media platform that you are the person who they can trust, you are the person that they can network with or laugh with or discuss things with. So social media, to close this section, very useful, very powerful. It's not your website, it's not your foundation. So essentially it's a complementary tool to the foundation of your digital presence, which is your website. Do invest on that, to spend some time to understand how you can be more relevant, how you can be more interested in the digital marketing space on social media, but do not overlook the rest of the opportunities that you have in the digital space and focus solely on one or two social media platforms. It has been a pretty lengthy one, but I think we've covered a lot of ground. I hope that you have enjoyed this webinar as much as I enjoyed while recording it and developing the content for it. There is a few points that we've highlighted during this session. Number one is the importance of focusing on specific niches. And I cannot stress how important it is to know what you are heading to. Start from a strategy, a solid strategy that will guide you through the process of understanding who you are as a business, what you're trying to promote, and what you're trying to achieve in these very competitive states. Give value to customers or prospects with the expectation that you will start receiving value back from them. Finally, one thing that's been very clear throughout this webinar is that marketing is not meant to be an expense. Especially digital marketing, there are specific metrics that you can utilize, there are specific tools that you can use to measure specifically your return on investment. Now, if it's an investment or an expense, it depends on you really, and how serious you are about it and how you are approaching it. If you are engaging with third parties, or if you're trying to do things yourself without even thinking who you are and what is it that you're trying to achieve, then very soon we'll be lost, and you will end up repeating the same work that you did in the past just because you weren't serious the first time around. I mentioned it at the beginning of this video. We are very excited to have you here, and we are very excited to discuss all things about digital marketing and business in general. Our contact details are going to be in the description. Feel free to share with us any thoughts. Feel free to share with us any feedback, positive or negative, about this video. We are very passionate about what we are doing. We believe that we are doing it well, so try to stay connected with us. Thank you very much.